Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the 36th Parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. If you have joined this session on YouTube and if you have any questions for our guests, make sure that you put that in the comment section. And if you're a teenager who has joined us on the Zoom call, make sure that you submit your questions on the Google form that has been shared to you so that your questions can be conveyed to the guests today and they can respond to you. Around 3 years back, we started the journey of the World Teen Parliament with a simple idea that let's create a forum where some of the most inspiring teenagers from across the world could come together and create a place where they could question and learn from the world leaders, from policymakers, that how do countries operate, how does democracy work, how does citizenship work, and how does the future voter or the teenager become a part of this complete picture. And that 3 year journey has been amazing. We have seen so many teens from different parts of the world who have been a part of the World Teen Parliament. And we are very happy to share that the fourth World Teen Parliament is having teenagers from more than 30 countries who have participated to become a member of parliament. And in this very session, or the 36th parliamentary session today, is the concluding session for the third World Teen Parliament. So a very warm welcome to all the teen MPs and influencers of the third World Teen Parliament. I hope you enjoyed your journey of the last 12 months. We'll be doing a review meeting after this, where we'll get to talk to you, learn from your experiences, that how more and what more can be done at the World Teen Parliament. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the 36th parliamentary session. Let me welcome our guests for today who have taken out the time and are here with us today. A very warm welcome to Honorable Flory Larue, the member of the National Assembly of Seychelles, Seychelles National Assembly from Victoria, Mahe, Seychelles. A very warm welcome, ma'am. And our second guest for today, Dr. Susana Salvador Anayatin, the member of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, Parliament of Philippines. A very warm welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out the time and being here with us for this 36th parliamentary session. Now, to initiate this session, let me invite the first guest for today for their opening address for the 36th parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. A very warm welcome to Honorable Flory Larue, the member of the National Assembly of Seychelles. Ma'am, over to you for the opening address and a very warm welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Here we're still in the afternoon. It's early evening. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for inviting me to participate. And I find myself privileged to be speaking to such a young audience. Generally, as a politician, as a parliamentarian, we address adults. And I find it a privilege that I'm able to address such a young crowd. So first of all, I find that it's interesting that there's so many young people interested in politics. And it always amazes me when a young person wants to try to understand what it is that we do and how can they get involved or become interested in such a topic. So as a young person, I find that the initiative that should be taken is, first of all, when you have this kind of interest, is to share it with others. This is the first thing that I find that a young person should do when they are interested in politics or the political realm, because the politics is often partisan and you belong to a political party. But there's also an element of individuality as well, when you yourself have an interest, but it's not necessarily in a political party, but a political subject. We have things such as environment, health, human rights, other aspects, which is also political or involved in the life of a politician or a life of an individual. So if you don't become partisan, then having other interests in the global world is also a way of initiating interest. So sharing that with a colleague or other friends or anybody who listen who's your age, that is a great thing that I find that young people must make the best of. So as teen MPs, that would be my number one thing that I tell you is share your interest, share your curiosity with other people around you, but always find a way, because politics is not always partisan, but you can find politics in other subject matter that would interest another person without saying directly this is politics. So I think this would be my expectation from a teen MP, is to be able to find a way to address issues with colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this amazing start to the parliamentary session. You're very right when you say, as a teenager, you have to understand that when you talk of policy making or governance, politics is a part of it. That's not everything around it. Understanding politics, policy making beyond party politics is what's important. Understanding the importance of agreeing to disagree, giving the person in front of you the space to tell you things, and you being open enough to understand things. This is the essence of democracy, and this is the way parliaments must function. Yesterday, I had a very amazing conversation with Honorable MP, where she told me the amazing story about the youth parliament that they function. So Seychelles has a functioning youth parliament that has an election where teenagers get elected and they work on decision making. And most importantly, and the most amazing part of it is that no party or no political party is involved in that youth parliament. So that's kind of what World Teen Parliament envisions to be in the future. Seychelles already has that. So we are trying to do something interesting with the government of Seychelles to try to give teens an opportunity to see how their parliament works, and also how can we collaborate with them to do a lot more for teenagers. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this amazing start to the session. Let me invite the next speaker for today for their opening address. A very warm welcome to Dr. Susana, Salvador, Anayatin, the member of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, the Parliament of Philippines. A very warm welcome, ma'am. It's amazing to have you here. You have a very unique role that you're playing at the Transition Authority. You are setting up how a parliament will operate in the future. You're setting up things for the Philippines. So a very warm welcome to you. It's amazing to listen to your unique experiences at the World Teen Parliament. A very warm welcome, ma'am.
Ladies and gentlemen, my warmest courtesies to Sir Daksh Gaur, the esteemed founder of the World Teen Parliament and the Blub World Foundation, to the distinguished guests, and to all the vibrant and promising members of the World Teen Parliament. Greetings of peace and goodwill to all. It is with great honor and humility that I address you today during the 36th Parliamentary session of the world's first executive teen parliament, the World Teen Parliament, to speak before such a gathering of young visionaries united by your commitment to democratic ideals and global progress is both inspiring and humbling. This opportunity to speak to you, the change makers of our future, is one I will forever cherish. First and foremost, allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Susana Salvador, Anayatin. I am a public servant and at the same time a peace and development professor. I am serving two capacities in the Bangsamoro government of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, Philippines, as Executive Director of the Office for Settler Communities, under the Office of the Chief Minister, and at the same time a member of the Parliament of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, representing the settler communities. So we in the BTA, being the legislative body of our region, are tasked with crafting legislation that not only projects the rights and welfare of the people, but also paves the way for sustainable development. Our work, however, is not without its challenges. My position, though appointed, carries responsibilities similar to those of elective officials. I was appointed by the President of the Philippines to serve in the first and second Parliament, and with that comes the delicate task of remaining impartial amidst political divisions. Balancing these complexities while striving to serve the best interest of my constituents requires unwavering dedication. But let me tell you this, even when you focus on the people who trust in your abilities, when you remember the causes you fight for, and when you believe in the values that brought you to public service, the challenges become stepping stones for growth and fulfillment. And this brings me to you, members of the World Teen Parliament. You have been entrusted with a monumental opportunity at an early age of your lives. You are uniquely positioned to engage in democratic policy making, to address the root causes of the most pressing issues in your communities, and to influence your peers and generations to come. At a time when many are still searching for their purpose, you have already found yours: to lead, to inspire, and to create meaningful change. Take pride in this extraordinary responsibility. Understand that the decisions you make and the values you uphold today will set the tone for the kind of leaders you will become tomorrow. Lead with integrity, listen with empathy, and act with courage. Be unafraid to challenge the status quo, and always remember that the voices of youth are not just important, they are essential for building a just and equitable future. The World Teen Parliament is a testament to the power of young people to shape the world. Your presence here is proof that age is no barrier to leadership, and that change begins when individuals, no matter how young, decide to act. I encourage you to embrace this moment. Seize the opportunity to make a difference. Let your voice be heard, your vision realized, and your actions resonate. For beyond this parliament, the world needs you now more than ever. Thank you, and I wish you all a successful session. May your work here today pave the way for a brighter tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the opening address. And before we go to the questions that come from the teenagers, I would request Honorable MP Flory Larue to please talk a little bit about the youth parliament in their country. How does that operate, and why is it essential for teens in your country to get engaged in politics? Why is it important for them to understand democracy and policy making? And what all interesting things are you doing for teens in your country? Ma'am, over to you.
In Seychelles, we have a ministry for youth. And within that ministry, we then have an agency called the SNYC, Seychelles National Youth Council. And this council does events or activities to engage the youth, not necessarily in the political sphere, but just in their everyday life. So create events, be it sports, cultural, art. So they do that in the different districts. That's their first engagement. But within the SNYC, within the council, they created a youth assembly. And this youth assembly, in the past, we had a situation where the youth were nominated by the council. So they name a youth from each district to participate. Lately, in the last 2 years, there has been a change of government here in Seychelles after 43 years of the same party rule. we've had a change of government and we have an absolute majority in the National Assembly as well, in the Parliament. And in the last 2 years after COVID, one of the things that we suggested is that the youth parliament members must be nominated, must be elected from their school. So that meant that personal affiliation to the council or other known people in the community would not influence how this parliament was put together. So in the last 2 years, we had proper elections where the candidate would nominate themselves, and then they'd have somebody who'd nominate them, and then they'd actually do a campaign like you would a politician. So they'd campaign in the school, they'd lobby, they'd put up posters, they'll give speeches, and they'll advise on how they will best represent the school through the parliament. Then the students vote, and this is for secondary school. So we're talking about 13-year-olds up to 18-year-olds, not above. They have to be under 18 and above 13. And these students in the secondary school, they then vote, and whoever wins is then goes on to the youth parliament. The youth parliament sit once a month, and they work on issues that affect them directly. So if there's and it's many things. Generally, it's rules to do with the schooling system. Like here, we have a very strict rule about the boys' hair, the way the hair should be cut, or the type of hairstyle they should have. And that is something that they're fighting to be removed because it's something that comes from a long time ago. It's a simple rule, however, it affects them a lot. So they've lobbied about that, but they also talk about things like family issues, alcoholism, different subject matter that affect children. And they sit in they sit in the ex-parliament that we had, that the country. So they sit in that office, in that chamber. They have a speaker, and they meet the president as well, the president of the country. So they have the opportunity to meet the president. They've been invited to the parliament also. As soon as they're elected, within a month or so, we invite them to parliament. So we engage with them. We allow them to contact us if they have something that they want to discuss. So the youth council facilitates their meetings, and that's how we go about it. And we engage with them, and after, when they leave, they keep their title, and they address other issues as well within the school, even though they've left the parliament. It's for a year. The term is 1 year, 1 year term. So that's it.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing this with us. And I think the most important thing that will remain, with all our MPs is that teenagers in Seychelles can, really break a rule where they have to cut their hair. Because a lot of teens are superbly image conscious. They look at their styling very critically. So they want to be having the power when they can tell their schools that, no, we'll have long hair. We want to enjoy a different hairstyle. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing this. Before we go to the questions, Susana, ma'am, I have a question for you. You have been a peace educator yourself. So which role do you like better, being an educator or being a policy maker? What is it that you like more, teaching or creating policies and solving problems that you see around you? And you have a very different kind of a responsibility in the transition authority. So which is it that you like more, being a teacher or being a policymaker as you are right now?
To you, good evening again. So you want me to choose which function I prefer? I prefer both, because most of the youth are also my students or former students. And in our region, the parliament is very new. It only started in 2019. So out of the 80 members of the parliament, we have one reserved seat for the youth. And we have the Bangsamoro Youth Commission. We have the chairman, and then there are 5 commissioners coming from the different provinces of the region. So they are in charge of policy formulation for the welfare of the youth, and they also conduct assemblies annually to consult the communities where the commissioners are coming from. And out of the assembly, they formulate policies, and if there is a need for legislation, they forward it to the parliament. So most of our youth are children of the former rebels of the region. So 40% of the population of the region are youth. That's why we give them space to represent, to listen to their voices, and address the issues and concerns that they present in the parliament. So I prefer both.
So I think it's a very interesting transition that you get to play every week. So let's now start with the question that come from the MPs. The first question comes from Haniya Jabbar. Haniya, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Greetings, everybody. I'm MP Haniya Jabbar from Jammu and Kashmir. And my question goes to Honorable Flory Larue. Ma'am, what policies and programs are implemented to address the gender pay gap and promote economic empowerment for women in Seychelles?
In Seychelles, I can say that we are a matriarchal society where most households are headed by women, and we don't have a pay gap. We don't have a salary gap between women and men in Seychelles. However, when it comes to gender inequalities, it's something that's always inserted in conversation, because no matter what, no society is perfect. So what actually I attended a workshop about 2 or 3 months ago, where the gender department under the Ministry for Family was reviewing all policies of all ministries to see how gender equality is addressed. Actually, what we found in Seychelles is that we're having a gap between male and female students, where a lot of our young men are failing or lacking behind our young women. And even in positions of generally, we find that a lot of our work, because we have official work, and then we have people who's in like unregistered employment, and we find that most of our young men are in informal employment, and it's mostly our young women who's taking up formal employment. So this is one of the things that we're trying to address, on how to reinitiate or attract our young men to engage in society through formal employment, and also to engage in improving their level of education. So we do address that, and we do it through the Ministry of Family, and we do have a review of policies which are expiring, and how we improve or how we insert it within these general policies.
Next question comes from Jude Joe. Jude, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Jude Joe, a teen MP of the World Teen Parliament, studying in class 10 at our own English High School, Sharjah. My question is to Dr. Susana Salvador. Philippines, like many other island countries, suffers from land deficit, and informal settlers often live under unsuitable housing conditions, prone to natural disasters. What are the measures implemented to safeguard?
You are right. Our country is very much affected by the global climate change. Our country is always visited by typhoons year-round. So what are the measures that we are implementing? We have now the Department of Disaster. It is very newly created. and then our regional offices for the social services and are well funded so that any time of the day or week or month that the disaster is there, the department can easily respond. And aside from that, our students are being trained, given skills, provided with skills how to respond during the times of disasters such as flood, earthquake, fires, etc. So we prepare our students and the youth to respond, and we also have volunteers that supports the rescuers during disasters. Most of them are youth.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the response. The next question comes from Vinayak Gupta. Vinayak, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Namaste everyone. I am member of Third World Teen Parliament, Vinayak Gupta from 10th class from BARMM Vidyalaya, Panchkula, Haryana, India. My question is to Honorable Flory Larue. As a member of the Food Security and Sustainable Development Committee, how can teens promote sustainable and organic farming techniques in today's world in light of increasing food requirements?
Well, first of all, food security is it's a world issue. We all know that there is enough food, but how do we manage this? Now, production of our food, it's another subject that for the time being, we are exploring. The quality of the food we eat affects directly the health that we have, so the health of our population. Here we have an obesity problem here in Seychelles. We're a very small country. We only have 100,000 people. Now, how would a youth be engaged to... For now, the only thing I can say is that you choose a field of education that would take you into this field. So being an engineer, food engineer, these kind of things would be how a young person would be able in the future to engage. We don't have some of the issues that we have, that you might have in India. Like here, we do not have child labor. We do not have children under the age of 18 working. So their engagement at that time remains focused on their education. And food standards and the quality of food and the food security of the country remains a discussion that we have with established farmers. And looking at our size, we have to continuously be safeguarding our entry points of food on the international market, which do not meet the quality or the standard that we would want our population to have. So it remains. For now, here in Seychelles, youth is not really engaged unless they then get involved later on through their work.
The next question comes from Aditya Rajesh. Aditya, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Aditya Rajesh, studying in grade 10 in Aaron English High School, Sharjah Boys, in the UAE. My question is for Dr. Susana Salvador. What advice would you give to teens who are trying to balance being themselves while dealing with the pressures of social media and fitting in?
Thank you very much. Very challenging question. So indeed, the generation of today are faced with the challenge of the accessibility of the social media. So that is also a challenge or a problem in my country, where most of the children are engaging with the social media at very young age. Maybe the role of the parents must be invoked to discipline their children on how to regulate the use of these available gadgets that are easily accessible to the children. So the parents' role must be revisited on how to nurture disciplined children, law-abiding citizen, and productive youth, productive teens, by regulating the use of the social media at their homes. So in the school as well, the teachers must as well regulate the use of social media so that the interaction and the engagement of the students among themselves will not be compromised. So face-to-face or personal interaction is still better than the use of the social media. And we have proven that during the pandemic that we had, wherein we have distance learning, and then we found out that the learning method is not effective. Face-to-face learning method is still the most effective rather than using the social media. So the parents' role and the teacher's role, maybe the church as well, and the community leaders to engage these children or youth who are becoming addict to these gadgets, accessing social media without limit, because nobody regulates the social media. It's open for all, accessible for all. That's very challenging and threatening to this generation and to the next as well.
I think it's a question that we would also like to see the response of Ms. Flory on this. That what do you think on this, and what happens in your country to regulate social media use?
In my country, of course, in the schools, children are not allowed to be using their phones. So that's regulated on that part. However, we cannot deny the role of technology in the lives of this generation and future generations. And as much as our generation, I'm 46 years old, and in my time, we would paint, we would read books, we would play football on the beach, we'd engage with other friends of our age. This is something from my past, from my life. But I have two children. I have an 18-year-old son and a 14-year-old son. And no matter how much we as the older generation disapprove or have an opinion on social media and the use of technology, it is very much part of the life of our youths. Now, the question is, how do they remain themselves? So social media is part of your generation. And as much as we have our rhetoric about what we think about it, it is part of your lives. Now, how, as a young adult, you then regulate how you use social media, that is something that will come down to the education of the parents and how they prioritize. From a very early age today, through the use of social media, a young person can gain knowledge on many fields. And that is one way of where a young person can better themselves by learning a skill. So that's one use of social media. And the skill doesn't have to be an educational skill. It can be a life skill. So learning to do something, to cook or whatever it is that you'd like to do. So it is something that's useful in that sense. And it would be up then to remain, the question being, how do you remain yourself? It is already part of you. Now it's how you use it, like anything else, the choices you use. So in my generation, we had TV channels. TV was a problem. When television came about, at one point in my life, there was only one TV channel. And then later on, we had movies and many channels. And it was something that we had to regulate. And it's the same thing as a young adult. You yourself will have to manage this, and your parents play a role in that education.
This discussion brings a very interesting question in my mind that since Seychelles already has a functioning youth assembly, a youth council, if at some point of time the council votes that they want to allow the use of mobiles in the schools, then how would that scenario play out, or what will happen in that scenario when the elected government of youth decides that they would want their phones and social media in the schools?
As much as we listen to our youths, we remain the adults. And when it comes to a school environment, The school environment is for learning. And of course, today technology is playing a big role in education. And no matter how we try to get around this, they do need to be using things like tablets, laptops, computers in the school. However, we can regulate what kind of sites they go to, so the social media sites can be blocked and things like that. So the use of technology is something that is happening now, and we just have to find a balance. Our education system, so our educators have to find a balance, but we cannot deny the use of technology. Now, within the school system, do you then, when you're learning, do you allow social media to be used? And if you do, under what context? So is it appropriate? Which I don't think so. So use of technology is one thing. Social media and social media platforms within the school system, I don't see how that fits in.
It's very interesting to listen to this response because it gives a context to the complete picture of how would it really shape out. Thank you so much for that response. I would request, there's one question that has come from the audience for Ms. Susana, that most of the transition governments in historically conflicted areas where minorities feel that they're not represented in the government, it's very difficult for transition authorities to build trust in the community on the government or on the parliament. So what specific steps are you taking or have you taken so that people really, trust in the process of transformation, and they also trust in democracy or the parliament that will get elected?
I agree with you that it is not easy to get the trust of the government and even the communities that we serve, being a transition government. But we really try our best that our programs are responsive to the needs of this community who has suffered for more than 50 years of armed conflict, the poverty problem, the poor access to education, the poor social services. These things we are trying to improve and make accessible to gain the trust of our people. So I agree with you, it's not easy. It is only a 5-year transition period that we have, and we are about to have our first election maybe next year, or it can be postponed to another year. So that's our status this time. But we are really trying hard, and the national government entrusts us with a black grant, wherein the parliament decides how to allocate. So it is very easy for us to implement programs and projects that are really responsive to the needs of our impoverished communities damaged by the armed conflict for more than 50 years.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the response. The next question comes from Mayank Kumar Rai. Mayank, please unmute yourself, introduce, and ask your question.
Namaste everyone. My name is Mayank Kumar Rai. I'm from Star Public School and I'm from India. My question is for Madam Flory Larue. Ma'am, my question to you is that how does the Food Security Department addresses concern about brands using obscure and misleading ingredients, names on labels, making it difficult for the public to understand what they are consuming actually?
Country that imports practically 90%, 95% of our foods. And because it comes from different parts of the world, wherever the importer brings it, it can come from Russia or different countries. So the labels are often in different languages. And we do have, through the Ministry of Health, we have established that all foreign marked labels must be in one of our 3 official languages. So languages are English, Creole, and French. So that already establishes that it has to be in a language that the person can understand. Okay, we also import a lot of things from India. So one of the requirements of the importer is to make sure that there is a cover label which is in English. Now, in relation to what's put in the food, this question is directly associated with the one that was asked earlier. Food quality and population health, country's health, is very much a subject that is being discussed in many parliaments around the world, because a strong population and a healthy population costs less in health for a government. So there is a financial cost to how healthy when you have a healthy population. So a lot is being done to educate consumers, because decisions of what you eat is an individual decision that you make. And of course, we all know that we are all encouraged to eat as wholesome as possible. The closer to an unprocessed food, the better it is for you. Now, what is in that particular food is something else. What kind of chemicals and things like that. And these are laws that are set up usually by the Agricultural Ministry, where we have standards of how much chemicals these food how much chemicals is put on the food. So when it comes to our labels, if somebody can understand what's in the food or not, that is very much an individual thing. When you live in a democracy, choice is very much the number one thing that the population expects. So it is an individual question on what the person decides to put in their bodies, and they need to know whatever is on the label, what it means and what it can do to them. So it's an individual thing in that sense.
The next question comes from Pakhi Poonia. Pakhi, please unmute yourself and ask a question.
I extend my warm greetings to one and all present here. I am Pakhi Poonia from 10th grade, studying in Birla Shishu Vihar, Pilani, Rajasthan, India. And my question is for Dr. Susana Salvador. Ma'am, how do you approach the challenges of balancing traditional community values with modern governance in regions like the BARMM?
Okay, nice question. How to approach traditional values? Well, in our region, there are three sets of people. The settlers are mostly the minority, most of us Christians. I'm one of them. And then we have the indigenous peoples of different tribes and different religions as well. And we have the Moros, the Muslims, who are the majority. So we engage in dialogue, both formal and informal. We teach our students how to understand and respect each and everyone's religion, because we have diverse religions in the country, diverse tribes as well, diverse culture as well. So we need to have cultural understanding and respect for each and every tribe and of different religion is one of the subjects that we teach in peace education, so that we will be coexisting in harmony despite of our differences in culture, traditions, and even religions. So one of our subjects is about cultural solidarity that is institutionalized from elementary, high school, and until college, and even in our postgraduate studies, we still have deeper understanding of these different cultures that we have in order to promote harmony.
The next question comes from Aasim Ahmed Khan. Aasim, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Aasim Ahmed Khan. I am of grade 10th Administrative School, Hyderabad, Telangana, India. I'm a member of the 3rd World Teen Parliament. My question is for Honorable Flory Larue. What is your vision for the future of food production in Seychelles, and how do you see technology and traditional methods working together to ensure sustainability and resilience?
Thank you for your question. In Seychelles is a very, very small country. The island itself is 27 kilometers long and about 7-8 kilometers wide at its widest point. So land is a scarce commodity here. And of course, we have an issue with allocating agricultural or land for agricultural use, and the continuous demand for land for development, other developments. So it's a constant battle that the Ministry of Agriculture has to manage together with the Ministry of Land Use and Habitat. on how much land do we preserve for agricultural use. Now, with that, we then have to manage these lands which are allocated for agricultural use and assess those who have been allocated these lands and how they use it. Traditional farming is very much in practice here. So the wheelbarrow and hoe and fork and is very much what most people use, because the people who were given agricultural land were not necessarily farmers by through training. So they're not trained or educated in that field, and they would just farm and not maximize production. And there has been an exercise, actually, we've been doing an audit, because here in Seychelles, we've had a government change in 2020 after 43 years of the same government. So we're reviewing how the land is being used and who the people who's been allocated these lands. And we are encouraging through loans, we have a development bank, through loans, assistance that prioritizes modernization of farmers. So we are very much encouraging this, and through finance, because one of the biggest gaps or reasons why people sometimes can't develop is because there's a lack of money. But then, even if you do give money, you need to have people who know what they're doing. Because you might give somebody money, because before we used to subsidize a lot of farmers, and now we're cutting away a lot of the subsidies, because we find that it doesn't actually pay off, because a subsidy is a tax cut somewhere. And by investing in one sector, you are then affecting another sector, because it's still money. Now, when you put subsidized funds in agriculture, you need to make sure that the money invested pays off through the production. But we haven't been seeing that. So we're now changing. And because we are very small, we have this opportunity to readdress the sector. We import most of our food, so it's a very small percentage of people who grow produce. And we have the opportunity to address this sector in another way, completely flip it around, because it is very small. So in our case, we are putting finance, and now we are removing people from the sector who might not be able to develop the allocated land. And if they're not able, we will then remove them from the land and allocate it to somebody who has the ability to produce more, especially through new technology. So that's what we are trying to do now.
The next question comes from Aqeedath Khanum. Aqeedath, over to you. Please introduce yourself. We are actually starting that some of the teens who are not MPs and influencers of the teen parliament can also ask some questions. So Aqeedath, over to you for asking your question.
Thank you very much. Good day to one and all. Greetings to the honorable panel. I'm Aqeedath Khanum from Indian School Al Gubra, Sultanate of Oman. And my question is to Honorable Flory Larue. So in the present world, many countries are taking efforts towards protecting their culture, which once thrived. And Seychelles is a country with a population of 119,000 people from various diverse ethnic backgrounds. So how have the youth of Seychelles, along with the government, worked towards preserving its unique Creole culture, such as its language, music, dance, and traditional crafts?
Well, I appreciate that you've done the research. Thank you very much. We are a touristic country, and one of the things that we offer our visitors is our involvement in our cultural life. There has been a lack of effort in that sector, and a lot of emphasis has been put by this government to readapt and put new emphasis on preserving our cultural heritage. We have just recently, a few years ago, have the Mucha, which is a dance, which has been registered with UNESCO. We are promoting a lot of our artists, not necessarily in just music, but art. You talked about our language, Creole language. I would say that is the most the aspect which has been best preserved is our language, because we have it inserted as a national language in the constitution. Often when you have a dialect which is not a primary language, it is not often recognized. So we did that. It's in our constitution. And then we then make sure that the learning is done in Creole in schools. So from a very young age, students are taught in the maternal tongue. Some discussions being done about whether this is the correct way to move forward or not. But however, to preserve it, it's one of the ways where we've been able to preserve the language. Because of being a small population and a young population, of course, technology and outside influence plays a big role on our lifestyle. And once upon a time, as a population, we used to wash our clothes in the rivers, dry them out. We'd cook our food on outdoor fires, and these things are not non-existent. But this is due to modernization, and most people, being so small, most people have adopted this. We have a very low level of poverty here, so we have a very high standard of living. So our cultural living ways, that is not really practiced. However, we do have a Creole week in October where all this comes out. So people wear their traditional clothes, you hear the traditional music being played everywhere, we have a lot of food everywhere, and we do promote our culture, and we remember the things that we used to do and we used to practice. So we keep it alive in that sense. And it's a national event. We sell it as a touristic event. Everybody gets involved, schools, workplaces, everybody gets involved. So it's a national thing. And this is the way that I would say that the country preserves our general culture. But then, of course, you have the Ministry of Culture. So we do have a budget for them. They have their head office. They work with artists and they promote local traditional foods. And they register these things, and they assist the people who do it by making sure that when they encounter a problem, that they facilitate whatever issues they have, so that they can keep doing what they do, especially if it's in the cultural sector.
Thank you so much. I think all the MPs and influencers, you have an invitation from Seychelles that do visit in the Creole week. So there are actually a lot of questions that we have, but we are nearly at the conclusion of this session because the time is is over now. So before the session comes to an end, we normally ask our guests that as a part of the closing statement, can you give all the teen MPs and influencers at the World Teen Parliament a small little challenge, a problem that you might be facing in your country where you're looking for a solution? Can you give these teenagers some homework to do, something that they can think, some food for thought, where they can solve a problem for your country? And can you give them some sort of reward if you're able to solve that problem? So let's first hear it from Susana, ma'am. Ma'am, do you have a challenge for all the teens and the closing statement for the parliamentary session, ma'am? Over to you.
Thank you very much. For the youth of today, maybe one of the challenges is how to become a global citizen, because relationship this time is borderless with the presence of social media. So how to become a global citizen without losing your identity?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a challenge that all of you have, that, how do you become a global citizenship? Find it out, ma'am. Over to Susana, ma'am, for your closing statement for the 36th parliamentary session, ma'am.
First and foremost, I appreciate being invited to this teen parliament. I am 72 years old, and I am not expecting to engage with this generation of teens all over the world. So I appreciate very much your invitation, and I hope I was able to share something about my country and what I am doing to all of you, and learn lesson from each and everyone. So I wish everyone a bright future, and I hope you become change leaders of this global world. Thank you very much, sir, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Let's now hear the challenge and the closing statement from Honorable Flory Larue for the 36th Parliamentary session. Ma'am, over to you.
I think that asking me to give them a challenge is a challenge itself, because it's a very diverse group. But what links them together is their age. And being teens, the problem I would put in front of them, which is something that we are facing here, is the huge rise of drug use by our young people. And I would ask you to, as young persons, to tell me how we can address the youth before they take this up and after they've taken drugs up. Guide me on how to address the drug use within our teenage population. For my closing statement, I would also like to thank my colleague, Dr. Susana, for answering some of the questions in this session. I would like to thank you for inviting me. For me, it's a huge privilege. I am looking forward to engage our young Seychellois to participate in this forum, because I'd like to see them also participate. I did not know about this forum until I was contacted by your organization. So I thank you for the work that you are doing. But one of the things I often hear the youth say is that they feel unheard, that they are not engaged, that we don't listen to them. However, I would appreciate if young people would use these platforms and find all opportunities possible to engage, because they feel unheard. However, at their fingertips, they have so much technology that they can use. I don't know about other parliaments, but here in Seychelles, on our website, on the Parliament's website, you will find the email address of the MP. And because we are so small, we engage directly with the people who write to us, because most of us answer our mail ourselves. So in bigger countries, I don't think that would be possible. However, do engage with your representatives. It can be politicians if it's partisan, or it can be organizations if it's in relation to a subject matter topic. If it's agriculture, if it's health, whatever it is, it can also be outside the political sphere. So engage as much as possible, and by doing so, maybe we can then answer this question of being unheard. And by you yourselves engaging, you are then making yourself heard. And I give a little example. When you are not well, if you are sick and you're at home, you get up and you go to the doctor. So you as an individual make the step of going out and going to the doctor and telling him that you're sick so that he can heal you. If you stay at home and then say you feel unheard, then definitely that is true. But if you engage, if you get up and you engage, then your voice, no matter how small, no matter how young, no matter what the issue is, if it's an issue to you, then explore it. and engage with it and engage with bodies that would want to answer that issue for you. So for me, my biggest thing is engagement, but already here you are all doing very well, because just by participating, it goes to show that you are engaged. Now it's about talking about this engagement to others. So bring somebody else along, engage somebody else. And by doing that, we also answer Dr. Susana's question, a global citizen. Today within this platform, we have people from one country, but from different areas within a country, and they're engaging. We have people from different countries. I'm in Seychelles, sitting in my house, hundreds of miles away from all of you, but we are engaging. So you have the opportunities today, and you are a global citizen in that sense, and make the most of it, and you will be heard.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Honorable Flory Larue, for the closing statement. A very big thank you to Dr. Susana as well for taking out the time for being here and being a part of the 36th Parliamentary Session of the World Teen Parliament. Thank you to both our guests, and thank you to all the teen MPs and influencers who took out the time and who are here with us. A very big thank you to every single one who was a part of the third World Teen Parliament. With this 36th Parliamentary Session, these sessions come to a conclusion for the third World Teen Parliament, and from January onwards, a new set of 100 MPs elected from all across the world will become a part of the World Teen Parliament, and the conversation will continue and we'll keep engaging. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time and being here with us for the 36th Parliamentary Session of the third World Teen Parliament. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste.